Now, before we go any further into this lesson, we need to make sure that our calculators are set to the right mode. And once we change this mode setting, you should just keep it there. It'll be good for the rest of the course. But we're going to click on mode right here next to second towards the top and make sure that the first row is set to degree, DEG. If it's not, then you want to arrow over to it and hit enter to make sure that it is on degree mode. And so we'll go ahead and write that in for our notes that we want to make sure we're in degree mode. And basically the reason for this is these are the units that we're using to talk about angles as degrees. Those other things that you saw on the mode screen, radians, those are things that those are different units of measure to measure angles, and the calculator needs to know what you're putting in. So if you're saying, hey, take the sine of 45, it wants to know, are those 45 degrees or are those 45 radians? So that's why we're hitting the degree mode right now, and just leave it that way. So now we're going to try to find a missing side length in a right triangle. Now, what I like to do on a problem like this is I like to circle what's known and what I'm trying to find. So that, for instance, in this one, we know the 54 degrees, we know the 2, and we're looking for the b. Once I have those three things circled, I then want to ask, all right, which trig function involves those three things? And so in relation to the 54, this is the opposite, this is the adjacent, and so the trig function that would apply would be tangent. Tangent, we know, is opposite over adjacent. So what we're going to do now is we're going to write an equation that involves those three things and the trig function tangent. So we're going to say the tangent of 54 degrees equals opposite, which is b, over the adjacent, which is 2. And then we're going to try to solve this equation. In order to solve this equation, we need to multiply both sides by 2. And that way the 2's go away. And we're left with b equals 2 times the tangent of 54 degrees. And now 2 tangent 54 is something I can put in the calculator. So I can type in 2 tan 54, and when I hit enter, I'm going to get this value here of 2.75. Now, in any of these problems, if you'd prefer, I want you to notice that you could actually find A, which actually, because that was labeled A, I probably should have called this tangent of B, since that's what we used. But we could have figured out what angle A was if we wanted to use that angle instead, because we know that it's going to be the complement of 54. So we could have used this if it was helpful, but we can see that it wasn't too hard to use 54 in this case. Now this example is going to be similar to the last in how we approach it. The algebra is going to be a tiny bit different, but we're going to start off the same way, that we're going to start off saying, hey, I got this angle here, I got this side length that I happen to know, and I'm looking for the hypotenuse over here. So this side 4 is going to be my adjacent side since it's touching the 24-degree angle, and C over here is my hypotenuse. And so I ask myself then, all right, which trig function involves adjacent and hypotenuse? And that's going to be cosine. The cosine of B is adjacent over hypotenuse. And so if I go ahead and plug those values in, my angle in question was 24 degrees, my adjacent was 4, and my hypotenuse was C. Now the algebra in this case, we're going to have to do a couple steps to this one. We're going to start off saying, hey, that C's in the bottom. I don't want it in the bottom, so I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by C, and that gets it out of the bottom. But my goal is to try to solve for C. Let's go ahead and rewrite what we have right now. We have C times cosine 24 degrees equals 4. Now keep in mind that cosine 24 degrees is a number. We can't look at 24 as just a number because we're taking the cosine of it. We're applying this function cosine to it. But what we have now is a number times c. So if I want to get c by itself, I can divide both sides by this number. This number, cosine 24 degrees. So that's going to go away on the left. So that all I'm left with on the left is c. And on the right, I have 4 over cosine 24 degrees. At which point I can use my calculator to help solve that. I can say, what's 4? I can write as a fraction or as divide by, whatever floats my boat. So 4 over cosine 24. And then I hit enter, and we're going to get about 4.38, we'll say. As a quick check, this needs to be bigger than any side length that's up there. The side length was 4. This is bigger than 4, so at least fits into that